live streaming. Oh my gosh. No. Okay. Hi. Greetings, family. We are live. Sincere apologies for the delay. Major internet challenges my end, but I've got a great team and they're going to be jumping in and taking over the show today. You know how it goes. I'm always absolutely determined that we have these really important conversations as a family, irrespective of the challenges that we face. So please do bear with us, family, and hang on in there. I'm sure the internet will get better as the evening goes on, so that we can have a clear connection. Okay, family in the house, as you can see, we've got in the house, we've got Brother Boyle in the house as well, and they have a really important message to share with you today. So we're just trying to make the connection and go live so that we can have this important conversation.
Grace first.
Is anyone in the house able to confirm that you are hearing me okay? It may well be that we're still connecting, maybe connecting. You can always tell, can't you, when I'm on the continent, but we are live. I hope that you will be able to hear me okay, despite the challenges. Right, are any of my guests able to hear me and take over? Brother Leader Bandaka, if you can hear me, please do take yourself off mute and welcome our audience.
Tendai
Brother Leader can't hear me.
Yes, I can hear you, my dear sister. And as always, I bring greetings in the most.
Please continue. Tendai Mwari.
Tendai Mwari, giving thanks and praises unto Mwari Nyakusika, God, the creator of the universe, to Muzima Mokuru, our great ancestors. We give thanks and praises, my dear brothers and sisters, for this blessed opportunity to gather in this virtual space where we as African people, under the direction of our brilliant and most blessed sister Shanice, bring knowledge and information and inspiration from our African world community. It is always an honor to serve our people. It is always an honor to know that African people are gathered enthusiastic about what is happening to our people around the world. And we're blessed this evening to have with us, courtesy of the hard work and the connections that Sister Shanice is making on the continent, that we have again from last Sabbath, last week, last Ujama evening, we have our brother Dur, who is with us this evening again. I'm going to ask him to introduce himself in a moment. Our young brother, I believe he said last week he was 30 years of age. So that's very, very encouraging to know that we have young blood in our midst that is thinking about the liberation of our people, thinking about the unity of Africa and African people under a Pan-African flag. And we also have our dear brother, whom I am meeting for the first time this evening, Brother Bal Gaib Deng. So let me invite Brother Bal. He looks slightly more mature than our brother Dur. So in African tradition, I'm going to call on the older head first and ask him to kindly introduce himself to the gathered strong in this virtual space. Tendai Mwari, Brother Bal, if you could please introduce yourself.
Oh, thank you for having me. How are you? Thank you so much. I want to thank you and thank Sister Shanae for hard work and what you've been doing for the on behalf of African people in the diaspora, also at home. This is my pleasure to be here, and I'm so honored to be with you as well, brother, and other brothers who are here.
Brother Ball, sorry to interrupt you. You started off sounding really strong, and your volume was up. Now your volume seems to have gone down. So, is there anything that you've done? I don't know if it's just me or the listeners as well, but your volume has gone down quite low.
Yeah, I think I may have an issue, and you see, maybe I can log out and come back again. Is that okay?
Okay, you want to try that? But it seemed to me when you started, your volume seemed to be adequate, but then it just dropped. So I don't know if there's anything your position has shifted or you touched anything.
Yeah. I think my phone is act like that. I can log in and log out. There could be.
Okay, if you try that, and we'll invite Brother Dor to introduce himself in the meantime. My dear brother, my young brother Dor, could you introduce yourself, please?
Raise first, family.
Raise first.
My name is Brother Dor Akwalbul of Team RBG South Sudan. Team RBG is Team Red, Black, and Green, a worldwide movement that put for race first, RBG nation building agenda. And so, whatever concern Black people, either in Sudan or in Jamaica or Haiti, or in Somalia, concern all of us because our problem is one and only one. And so I stick with the like-minded brothers and sisters, and especially the elders, to observe, the wisdom that can sustain us on our militant pursuit to make sure that, the message for Africa, Pan-African freedom struggle is heard. So I'm glad to be here with Sister Chinese because the Queen Sister provided a platform to help us spread the message. So I'm glad to be on the show tonight. Raise first and people OG.
Tendai greetings and welcome to you, Brother Dor. I love your spirit. I love your energy, and I love your name. You have a very expansive African name. Do you want to just tell us what your African name means, my brother? Just give us an idea of the meaning of your name.
All right, my name is basically based on abstract, concept. So my name Dor mean peace, in Jing or Dinka language of Dinka of South Sudan. Yeah.
Okay, South Sudan. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So Dor mean peace, Dor or Islam. All right. And the second name, my father's name is Akol, and Akol means sun. Ra, the sun god.
Ah. Oh, wonderful. Wonderful.
Yes.
So you bring with us the peace of our motherland, the peace of our ancestral spirits, and you bring also the blessed energies of Ra. No wonder you have such a massive smile, my dear brother. Yeah. So it's good to have you on the show this evening. We're waiting for Brother Ball to come back. But if you could just tell us, we know you come from South Sudan, but of course, South Sudan and what we call Sudan today were once one nation. Can you tell us, my dear brother, what your perspective is on the present conflict or war that is taking place in the Sudan and how it is impacting the lives of our people? And we're going to come to Brother, it's good to see Brother Ball back. So we're going to come to you very shortly, Brother Ball. But let me just get here from Brother Dor. Give us your perspective on the crisis in Sudan presently, my dear brother.
Well, the problem with the Sudan, as the late leader of this of the Sudanese movement, the Sudan People Liberation Army or movement SPLA, SPLM, Dr. John Brink identified as the fundamental problem of the Sudan is the identity crisis. And this identity crisis, when Sudan was about to be given, that Eurocentric independent back in the day, during African, independent movement. So the Anglo-Egyptian rule, because it is the combination of two countries, Egypt and Anglo-Saxon. And so they decided to give the freedom, the independent to Sudan, but in the end, they elevate the light-skinned Arab, all right? Actually, they are just descendant of slave masters in the Sudan. Majority are not genuine Arab, and so they just confused this racial relation among the Sudanese people. And so that one there, beginning in 1956 to today, excuse me. So those challenges continue to bedevil Sudan today, because during that time, the independent given, was not a genuine independent, because they lumped all ethnicities, all religions, or people from different religious background, because in the southern Sudan, we do have traditional African spirituality practitioners, whom they call as animists, and we do have also Christians, and we do have Muslims, all type of religious faith and spiritual belief system. And so, at the end of the day, all of these were pitted against one another. Even the brothers in Darfur, of course, they are unapologetically African in their looks, but because of the mentality, because of the centuries of
if I could come in there just a moment, my brother, you talk about Christianized Africans, Islamized Africans, and you speak about African traditionalists, so-called animists. Is a word I really distinctly dislike. And
I don't like.
Or you feel the same way as I do about it. But if you can you give us an idea of what, roughly speaking, what percentage of South Sudanese are traditionalists, what percentage are Christianized, and what percentage are Islamized?
Well, this is actually tricky, but I can say the people that claim to be Christian themselves are just practicing traditional African spirituality, secretly. They may not be showing up, and sometimes they may be pretending that they are Christian, attending all these institutions for masses, for all sort of things. But I can say it's like roughly 50% people are Christian, but majority in the village, you see, like
what's 50-50? What is,
yes,
what's 50-50? Sorry?
Practitioners of African spirituality and Christianity, so like 50-50.
Right. And what percentage would be Islamized?
Well, in the South, it just like when in 2011, when the South succeeded, when they start being pruned and receptive to the idea of Islam, and now they establish all this building for worship across the state. So basically, I can say like 25%. But because of the recent conflict that just took place there, that displays a lot from Darfur, because we know that Darfur is basically Islamized state, unlike the South. And people also in the Nuba Mountain, our brothers, comrades in the struggle, in the Nuba Mountain and Southern Kordofan, all these other places. So they are here in the South. So that may take us to 40% because they are here. And so now these days, South is actually, a sort of heterogeneous society, you know what I'm saying? So
let me ask you one more question before I come to Brother Ball. You talk about the Christianized, Islamized, and the traditionalist Africans being pitted against each other. How is that done? How does that manifest itself in South Sudan?
Well, how it manifests itself is the construction of various places of worship. Like for the case of Christian, there are a lot of crusade-sticking places. They go out there and then they burn all the shrines, burn all the things that reflect traditional African spirituality practitioners. So
they are attacking traditionalist shrines.
Yeah, first they bring white the people, and once you accept it, they go to your home, burn everything. And for the case of Islam, I think sometimes the problem is economic, because the more you accept Islam, these will be middlemen, that between that are just between the indigenous population and the people up north. They'll be trying to act as a middleman, so they'll be trying to transport their Islam agenda, right? So to the people, and then you be given economic opportunity to operate, and then you become a little bit worldly. So I've been saying this, and even the people that are just uh, let's say people that are not maybe you are Christian, of course, or a traditional African is a Christian. A person that believes in Islam is a lot better than you, because they do have economic access, all right, because of their faith, due to Muslim Brotherhood.
Let me pause it here for a moment, my dear brother. We certainly will come back to you. And we are hoping that our dear sister Shanice will be able to join us suitably and take over control of the program as she should. Just before I come to Brother Ball, I know Sister Shanice wanted to just highlight also our Hurricane Melissa in the Caribbean that has...
Please do continue. My line is unstable.
Yeah. Okay,
Please
my dear
continue.
sister. Well, please do intervene as and when you are able to, my dear sister. We love to hear your voice, and you are best equipped to conduct and direct discussions this evening. But I do know that Sister Shanice wanted to highlight the hurricane in the Caribbean that has battered several islands in the Caribbean. We know that it has hit Haiti, it has hit Jamaica, it has hit Cuba and the Bahamas. I know that hundreds of homes in Haiti have been flooded, and at least 25 people have died in Haiti. We know that there have been some deaths in Jamaica, I think fewer than Haiti, but deaths. There is at least 3 people who were found dead in the wake of the impact of the hurricane. And we understand that it has also battered Cuba. I haven't got an update on how exactly Cuba has been affected, but I'm understanding that it has hit Cuba quite hard as well. So our thoughts and our sympathies and our meditations of healing and strength go out to our people in the Caribbean. When I come back to Brother Dor, I will ask him to... In fact, let me just ask you, Brother Dor, if you would like to, just before I go to Brother Bal, let me ask you if you would like to say a few words in respect of the impact of Hurricane Melissa in the Caribbean to our African brothers and sisters in the Caribbean. Tendai Mohari. Go ahead, my brother.
Race First family. I just checked my news feed this afternoon, and I was greeted with the fact that there is a tornado that took place there and created a lot of mayhem, a lot of havoc on our people on the island of Caribbean. So, like especially in Jamaica, it's barely affected. And well, me and my brother in Kenya moments ago when we were on the call, we were just sending out some positive vibes to our people on the island, because the problem that Black people are facing, be it natural or or human induced suffering, are basically one all over the world. So, yes, to put in, let me highlight something to you, because as a team RBG member, I want to share this with you because it's an opportunity with me. You're on the show, and for our potential viewers, in Team RBG, we promote what we call Ubuntu Solidarity. And in Ubuntu Solidarity, we affirm that I am because we are.
That's
we live
right.
as a collective. Yes,
That's
sir.
right.
So, and Ubuntu Solidarity has a formula, and that formula is 12-12, 12-12 p.m. Whenever you set the alarm, in my time zone, especially in Central Africa, so, and a brother that may have said is, somewhere else here, all the alarm will go up at the same time, and then it will remind us in this quiet or silent revolution that, you know, our global struggle is connected as one. All right. If our brothers in Kenya, because they are just 1 hour, behind us, I mean, 1 hour ahead of us, you see, you know, they will also be meditating that very, you know, that 12-12. You know, I'm thinking about the challenges that Black people face all over the world because we are living through a Black state of emergency. And that Black state of emergency need us to get our head together and how to consider one is problem as the others is problem, because we believe that in Ubuntu, that the others are us and we are others. And so we are brothers and sisters.
Yes, indeed, my dear brother. In fact, I would just alter the wording a little bit of this Black state of emergency. You are absolutely correct. There is a global state, a global African state of emergency. And I think it's important that we as Africans register that well in our minds, that we are facing a global existential crisis, that if we do not as African people worldwide get on top of this existential crisis, we run the risk, as Papa Garvey, the most eminent prophet and king, His Excellency Marcus Messiah Garvey, told us decades ago, that we will become exterminated. We must not take that for granted. Africans, too many Africans are dying in different parts of the world in circumstances that are not necessary. Let me come to Brother Ball. Brother Ball, before I ask you to pronounce on the present crisis in the Sudan, I am sure you would want to utter some words of condolence and comfort to our people in the Caribbean who are being impacted by Hurricane Melissa. Over to you, my dear brother. First of all, if you could introduce yourself, please.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Bol Gai Deng, you know, South Sudanese. Before that, I was Sudanese and also been active in the community of Sudanese people and African community around the world and the United States. You know, currently running for president of South Sudan. Let me give my very much condolences for those who lost life for this hurricane in Caribbean, Jamaica, Haiti, and rest of the area that have been affected by this hurricane Melissa. You know, I'm a guy that have been travel a lot around the world, including Caribbean. Met with Andrew Ernest, which is the Prime Minister of Jamaica. He's a man that I know very well. Have a discussion with him, connection with him. The Prime Minister of Haiti as well. You know, we've been having so many conferences in DC area, in Washington, DC last year. I just want to let you, I know people that they've been active. Even yesterday, I was follow up with this hurricane and the briefing of the government of Jamaica, briefing the public on what is going on there. So we very much follow up with that, and because it's our concern, and as well as Sudanese issues is our concern. And thank you so much.
Absolutely, absolutely. Tendai Mwari. Our joy is your joy. Our pain is your pain. Wherever African people are, we share the joys, we share the sorrows of the African global experience. Certainly, Brother Ball. Brother Ball, we are concerned this evening with the humanitarian crisis in the Sudan. The United Nations have pronounced that this is the worst humanitarian crisis in the world presently. We know that over 150,000 people have died in the last 2 years because of this awful, awful battle between these two forces, these two military forces in the Sudan. We know that millions of our people, 13 million people, have been displaced, some internally, some externally. And we do know that the nature of the crisis is creating instability in the Horn of Africa. It is not a pretty picture, my dear brother. Can you share with us your perspective on the crisis in the Sudan? What is happening in the Sudan? Why is this is this happening? Can you take us forward, my dear brother?
Thank you. And I want to thank Sister Chanine for giving a chance to the voices of Sudanese who are voiceless for this crisis they are in. You know, I call it a genocide. It's not even a crisis. It's actually turned to genocide right now. It's a major genocide ever been in Africa, and this is the worst one. The Sudan, as you know, most of you may not be aware about the Sudanese crisis. Sudan is a country that's been at war since independence, and beyond independence, Sudan actually was the hub of the slavery in Africa, doing 200 years back and 500 years and 50. I mean, Sudan have been the pro-slavery country in Africa. And Sudan have opened so many slave markets, slave in Africa.
And of course, you're speaking about the Arab enslavement.
Absolutely, because actually that is this is the gateway to the Red Sea and to Egypt and to Arab Peninsula and to slave Africans. So Sudan have been the gateway to ship the African to slavery. During that time, Sudan, Egypt benefit from slavery so much in Sudan, and go back to the abolishment of slavery in 1800 by the Queen Elizabeth of England, which I would say that the first time that the world come together in England and called for abolishment of slavery in 1850 in United Kingdom. The Queen Elizabeth actually sent some soldiers to stop the slavery in the Mediterranean Sea and Red Sea. And Queen Elizabeth actually realized that actually because this is slave, they go all the way to Western India and rich Europe, rich and very much Caribbean. They were trying to stop the abolishment of slavery, that the world come together and called for abolishment of slavery. So was a couple of generals were sent to Egypt to make sure that they need to follow up with the abolishment of slavery. Egypt did not accept that. Egypt still keep enslaving Africans, and the African Sudanese selling the African slave to the Egyptian, to the Arab Peninsula. That have been the trend of the slavery in Africa. Okay, and then during that kind of time, the Egyptian, the United Kingdom generals who come to the East Africa, they did not succeed to manage the slave or to stop the slavery. So it never stopped until they killed one of the general of United Kingdom, which at his name was Gordon. James George Gordon was actually sent to Khartoum to stop the slavery. Man, that it was killed by the Islamists. By a man called Muhammad Ahmed al-Mahdi, which actually was the imam of see himself as the prophet who can actually portray as the Islamic world view in Sudan. That was 1800. I'm talking about 1885 when they killed the Gordon. And the Sudan went on with that kind of slavery. It never stops until we reached to 1956 when Sudan actually gained independence, not only from United Kingdom, gained independence from Egypt and also with the Turkish. Okay. And then when Sudan got independent, it was actually still controlled by Egypt. The man who actually led the independence of Sudan, which actually Ismail al-Azari, it was a pro-Arab Union, Arab nationalist who was there to police the Egyptian governance system in Sudan. And then South Sudanese, who are very much majority of the war, very much Christian, anonymous, you name it all, prevail and form a movement called Anyanyai One. And that movement went on. Anyanyai One, yes. And that movement went on for more than 17 years. Mm-hmm. And they signed a peace in 1972 at Addis Ababa peace, that it broke up again.
From Anyanya 1 from 1955 to 1972.
Correct. And then that actually peace was signed. And then when the members of Anyanya 1 came into Khartoum, tried to be a part of the system, the lead of the president of the Sudan at that time, Mohammed Numeri, Jafar Numeri, was actually a pro-Islamic Muslim Brotherhood who actually forced the Sudan to be governed by Islamic worldview, and Sharia law have to be amended. And the Africans, indigenous, realized that this is not what we signed the peace for. And then they went back again to Bush for more than 21 years that we're getting the fan of South Sudan today. But that exactly the trend of Sudan. Sudan never been at peace. And the people that were fighting the South Sudanese at the time, they were African indoctrinated Muslims who were fighting non-Muslim. They called them infidels. The South Sudan had been seen as infidel. They were fighting them, and then the Sudanese government was using some African brothers to fight the African brothers in the South. That had been the war. And then after South Sudan got independent, the Africa within the Sudan, who was the Muslim, realized also Sudan has a problem. We got to ask also for our right, because being in Africa as a Muslim, you also are not accepted. Regardless, you are full Muslim, that was not the issue. The Darfurian come along in 2003 and they form a movement to ask for the rights after they see South Sudan is about to get independent. And that actually created a genocide that occurred in Darfur recently. What I want to say is this: Sudan has been faced by Arabization and Islamization of the Africa continent. And Sudan is the gateway to Islamize and take over the Africa. And to do that, you need to establish in Sudan, because Sudan at the time is the largest country in Africa. And Sudan also is a gateway to Africa. If you go back to the history of the Sudan itself, Sudan go all the way back to the ancient African culture, which you call Sudan as the Kush nation, the Kushite, and the Ethiopia, and also the Nubian. Sudan had the three names at the time: Ethiopia, and Kush, and also Nubian. The Ethiopia we have today is not the real Ethiopia. The Ethiopia we have with the Sudan in the Bible, if some of you read the Bible, is the Sudan today who's still at war today. And Sudan was the first Christian nation in Africa before actually Adam Empire took it over, to be honest with you. So this is the story of Sudan. Sudan also is the civilization. If you go back to the mankind, how it was created in the East Africa region. So Sudan has so much rich culture and rich history of the African people, and also the Arab, particularly Egypt, also want to control the Nile Valley, which actually Egypt is benefit from the water. You see that you could hold on to Sudan, he will be able to manage to control the water from the Nile Valley, which come all the way from Lake Victoria, South Africa, all the way to these 7 countries in Africa. So these are the things that facing Sudan. Sudan have been used as a gateway to benefit the Arab League, which is the headquarters of Egypt today, and to make sure that the African, you have to be wiped out in that region. So that is the issue of Sudan. They want to wipe out the indigenous people of Sudan.
So, Tendai Mwari, we thank you for that backdrop, my brother. That gives us some insight into the historical Islamization and Arabization of the Sudan, and the way the Sudan was exploited in terms of the trans-Sahara enslavement of African people, which is very, very important as a backdrop. Can you tell us, and before I ask you the question, let me just say that when you refer to British interventions in the Sudan in 1885, we are the monarch of the day was Queen Victoria and not Queen Elizabeth. But I do want to put into perspective the hypocrisy of the British in the late 1800s, trying to allegedly stop slavery in the Sudan, but at the same time, they were stealing land all over Africa to colonize the African continent. That we need to always keep into perspective. That,
yes.
And that colonization was a higher degree of enslavement. It was a more sophisticated form of enslavement, because rather than individuals enslaving individuals, with a colonial system is a country enslaving another country. That's colonialism. And the British were in the 1800s, the 1885, in fact, 1884-85, November 84 to February 85, was the Berlin Conference. And that was that insidious conference that resulted in the carving up of the African continent, sharing up amongst the Europeans, which Africa is still suffering from today. So I just wanted to put that into perspective.
And let me tell you something.
Go ahead, my brother.
Africa have been enslaved before European reached Africa in 7th century.
Mm-hmm.
The Africa have been enslaved by the Arabs.
Yes, yes,
before the
yes.
European reached Africa in 1400.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So that means if you talk about 7th century all the way to 1400, in between, Africa have already been in the market by the Arab elite.
Yeah. Yes.
And Sudan have been held by that slavery until this day.
Yes.
And also, don't forget, because of that slavery that been went on before the EU reached to Africa, made the North Africa to be depopulated by the Arab race and move in. Now you have Tunisia, Morocco, Algeria, Egypt, you name it, and they're moving in also to Mauritania. I can name it all. These regions, they were populated Black Africans.
Absolutely.
But they have been shipped away from that land. And they move in and make it as a base for them. So if you talk about how many Europeans own the land in Africa, own the country in Africa, I can tell you none. But I can tell you because the Arabs that exist for too long were able to move in and have a region called North Africa today. So if you want
the so-called Arab Maghreb.
Yes. So if I want to say this, when you have a lion in the house and you have a lion in the backyard, would you confront the lion in the house or the lion in the backyard first? I guarantee you the common sense can tell you I have to confront the lion that inside my house where my children and my wife are living in.
Absolutely.
And this is the situation of the Arab. Arab are living in the house with us in Africa. And the European are in the backyard.
My brother.
Until now, we don't have a republics, European country in Africa until why you can have Arab Republic in Africa. That tell you that we have an issue until we identify that African land have been taken away, and that's why Sudan want to be made Arab Republic. That's why the African are dying because they refuse and resist not to have Arab Republic. They want to have African Republic. That's why the million of Sudanese are dying until this day because they want to see the African Republic.
Word, sound, and power. What can we say? I think you're right, my brother, to emphasize the devastating effect of Arabized enslavement of Africa. The Arab version of the Ma'afa on the African continent is extremely important. And yes, it preceded the European enslavement of African people by a millennium, by 1,000 years. That is true. And it has been a pernicious impact on the African continent. So that is a correct statement for you to make, my brother. And what I don't want us to lose is the insidious and deceitful nature of the Europeans, because in many ways, European enslavement, the European enslavement of African people, in many ways would not have been possible without the history of Arab enslavement. Yeah. So
yeah. You see, my brother.
I'm going to come back. Make your point, my dear brother. I do want to come back to Brother Dor, and then I'll get back to you, my dear brother. But do make the point that you want to make. Go ahead.
My concern, and this is the problem we're facing. I'm a runaway slave. I managed to run away from a slave of the Arabs. I am a former slave in the hand of the Arab. Right. I'm not just talking to you as an African liberators or activists.
Right. Bear with me. Bear with me, my brother. I want to suggest. Bear with me. I want to suggest that you were not a slave. You were enslaved.
Exactly. Let me
Yeah. Go ahead.
you put that correctly. But let me tell you, being enslaved in your own land is the worst thing. It's better for being taken away than being enslaved in your own land. And that's what is going on in Sudan today. Sudanese have been enslaved in their own land, their own God-given land.
So you're saying this vicious system of enslaving Africans in the Sudan is still going on today?
It's still going on this day.
And you, as an African from the Sudan, was an enslaved African who escaped that system of Arab enslavement in the Sudan.
Absolutely. And that's what I know, that's my expertise. And your expertise could be the England's and European, but my expertise is what Arab are doing right now in Africa and Sudan. That is my expertise.
Okay. I'm going to ask you to elaborate on that a little bit later on. But what I want to ask you to do now, just before I come back to Brother Dur, could you, for our listeners, explain how that historical perspective, that very important historical perspective of the Arab enslavement of African people, how does that relate to the present crisis? The present crisis with these two warlords and their military forces fighting each other and devastating the lives of Africans in the Sudan. How does that historical background that you've just given us, how does that relate to the present crisis in the Sudan?
These two generals, they are working for somebody. They are working for the Arab League. They are not working for South Sudanese. They are not working for Sudanese, and they are not working for Africa Union. They are pro Arab League generals. They are fighting to advance the Arab agenda in Sudan. Neither one of them believe in Africanism. Two of them are fighting over who's supposed to be the great loyalists to the Arab League, not to the African people. If you see these two, General Burhan being supported 100% by Egypt government, by Egyptians.
And General Burhan is the head of the Sudanese armed forces, yes?
Absolutely. And Sudanese armed forces, they get indoctrinated Egypt military training before they send them back to lead Sudan.
Okay. They're also backed by Saudi Arabia, aren't they?
Absolutely. And you got also General Ameti, on the other hand, gets support 100% by United Emirates.
United Arab Emirates.
Correct. And all of these, they have a piece of fire. This, they want to make sure that they have to control the Sudan, because Sudan is the country that has the resources. And that's why these two generals, they are not fighting for the liberation of the African in Sudan. Neither one of them support Sudanese cause or Sudanese indigenous cause. One of them are fighting to control the resources, to hand them over to the loyalist countries like Egypt, maybe United Emirates. And that's why the indigenous are dying in the hand of these two generals.
And what are these?
And that also go back to advancement of the Arabization in the country, because actually when a slave market is no longer affordable to sell a slave in the market, you got to wipe them out. And that's why they are wiping out the indigenous, because market is not available now. Market is not available anymore. Now we have to kill them so we can have a land when we can let Arab move in. As they did in North Africa, they can do it again. And then within 50 years, 100 years, you can see a different race that don't look like African, but they look a little bit blue or green, or they look white. That has been the practice.
Hence your use of the word genocide. What you're saying to us, and what I'm hearing, is that these two Arabized forces are promoting Arab interests in the Sudan. They are fighting for supremacy to defend and promote Arab interests in the Sudan.
Absolutely.
At the price of African lives. Yes?
True.
So that it is in their interest to commit genocide, in that pursuit, to commit genocide, to kill Africans, indigenous Africans. Yeah?
Yes.
In order to promote Arab interests in the Sudan. Is that what I'm hearing from you, my brother?
Correct. You're right.
you talked about resources, about using the resources to promote Arab interests. What are the main resources of the Sudan, my brother?
Sudan is rich in gold, and the United Emirates, of course, want the gold from the Sudan.
Most of Sudan's gold goes to the United Arab Emirates, doesn't it?
Absolutely. You got Egypt also want to control the water, because Egypt without Nile, there's no Egypt. So Egypt want to make sure that they have to manage and control the water. You see, Egypt also have a dispute with Ethiopia, because Ethiopia was trying to build a dam to become a chaos between Ethiopia and Egypt, because Egypt want to use a middleman to confront the Egypt, and see Sudan army that it could be able to do is work in Egypt and make sure they can control the water, so Egypt can maintain the Nile Valley. And Egypt will find the one when they can form agriculture as well. And also Sudan is the rich in oil. These are another factor that is going on in the country. Sudan rich in agriculture. That also the Arab need to have a land and have agricultural land that can ship the food to the Arab Peninsula. Sudan also rich in animal and cattle and you name it all. These they need it.
Many of the leading Arab countries have a struggle with the quality of their land, don't they? Because a lot of their land is desert land and so on. Sudan has a rich expanse of arable soil, and so the Sudan is used to compensate for the land crisis that exists in the Arab world. Is that correct?
Of course, because they use Sudan as interest to benefit them in one way or another.
Yes. And that's a very important perspective, my brother, because we don't often hear about the quality of the agricultural land in the Sudan as a major resource. We hear about the gold. We hear about, in fact, by the way, the word Nubia comes from the word Nub, which means gold. And that's so right. we know that the Sudan is rich in gold. We know it's rich in oil. In fact, the Chinese many decades ago said that there is more oil in the Sudan, more rich oil in the Sudan than all of OPEC put together. The Chinese actually said that about 30 years ago, 30 or 40 years ago. And so, but what is less talked about is the rich agricultural land that we have in the Sudan. My brother, I'm going to come back to you. Let me take Brother Dor. And Brother Dor, thanks for your patience, my dear brother. I want to engage you in helping us to understand a particular perspective of this crisis in the Sudan. And that is to do with, as a young person yourself, can you give us an insight into how young people are being affected by this crisis in the Sudan?
Raise first, family.
Raise first, brother.
It feels good to be back again, to give my perspective concerning the issue in hand. Well, I just listened and I admire the fact that, we are just trying to get some perspective, despite the fact that our perspective may be the same as African, but not similar. So I agree on many things that you elders and betters just mentioned. So as a young person in the Sudan, I always believe that all our problems, are basically one as African, no matter wherever you are. Because as Peter Tosh said himself, you are an African. No matter your nationality, all right, or your denomination, our problem, we must confront it as African. So, of course, what I can say, we may be divided as Sudan, the Congo, Nigeria, Kenya, all of these other colonial boxes. So, Sudan is a colonial construct. I can say specifically that the wars in humanity is just being borne by the people in the Sudan. So what is affecting our people in the Sudan is what is affecting our people in the Congo. All right, because Africa, we knew that Africa is just a land that is rich in, with the natural resources. All right, and so all of these have just attracted the outsiders, and they just manipulate us, all right, so that we can start fighting ourselves, use some of our own in order to eliminate the strong leaders that try to march on the beast. So, of course, the problem is being fueled by European powers. I will go back a bit to the historical, to highlight my perspective on the historic process back in the day. Of course, Queen Victoria was responsible for the partition and scramble for Africa. And so when she sent Governor Charles Gordon of Anglo-Egyptian forces, of course, Charles Gordon, as Brother Bolt mentioned, it was murdered by Mahdi's forces. And so Mahdi's were trying to establish a Mahdiya state or Islamic state. And so, of course, we can downplay the effects of Arab supremacy, over white supremacy, because the European, because they see that slavery just dehumanize them, despite the fact that they try to dehumanize other humans, just black people. So they try to come up with a subliminal way of maintaining their racism, because racism, of course, it is not basically a hit of a person based on their own skin. It is a group system where you have to control economic access to the resources. So all they have to do is establish this Western controlled institution, IMF, World Bank, World Economic Forum, all sort of these institutions. So you see now our problem basically boils down to all these institutions. If we want to downplay the white man, as more friendly than an Arab, right? So all of them are enemies and those are outsiders. The worst that just happened, it because they just brainwashed us. So we identify whether if you are a Christian, you identify with the white man as better than an Arab. If you are a Muslim, you join forces with your Muslim brothers, and see white people as worse enemy than your own. This is the issue we are facing. We are being divided. And so as a young people, you do not have actually good leaders that promote us. That promote our noble cause for the liberation. Yeah, and then we try to be conducting some activities, of course, as youth, or even there is no proper organizing, as Marcus Garvey say, organize, and as a way of compelling the world to respect us. So you see, Baba Bro leader Mdaka, as youth, of course, it affects us the most because youth, we know that in our African community, or as a way of life in Africa, youth should be like a frontline fighters, and of course they are frontline fighters, and elders provide some counsel. But if there are no youth, if there are no proper leaders that can simply guide the youth can be wasted, like how it is happening in Sudan. Youth are being used as tools, right, for domination. Be here in South Sudan or up north, right? There are youth that are being used because if you are caught in economic dilemma, right, you will be thinking of how to get quick money. So we have RSF, which is Janjaweed Force, because Janjaweed, was like a Frankenstein monster, right? Because it was created by the evil scientists, the Khartoum regime or Islamist regime. But now it turned against them and try to kill it. But the monster now become, a pool, a full-blown monster, and so they couldn't control it. So the youth are dying there, and the youth, there was no proper guidance. Of course, in matters of ideology, sometimes or all the time, it is better to study the ideological perspective of the moment, right? You may identify yourself with the moment basically because it is inspired by your religion, because what happened in North Sudan, it because, the wet religion and it stay together. And so you can differentiate between the two. They'll be trying to promote a cause, a political cause, but, religion is sandwiched in and, you couldn't be able to differentiate the two. So this is the case. So whether you are a youth fighting with RSF or you fighting with the regime, all right, alongside the regime forces, you are being manipulated. Our youth are dying there and they're being used as a wrecking machine. So
just by way of perspective, brother, the median age of the Sudan is 18 years. and which means that half the population is below 18 years of age, half the population above 18 years of age.
Yes, sir.
So, and 60% of the Sudanese population is under 25 years of age. So the overwhelming majority of people who are being impacted by the crisis, the huge humanitarian crisis that the United Nations says is the worst humanitarian crisis in the world. The overwhelming majority of people being, of Africans being affected are young people. Young people.
Yes, sir.
How does this manifest itself from your observation? How does this impact on education, health of our young people, hope and opportunity for our young people? Can you speak to that? The young people of the Sudan. Can you speak to that for me, please?
You know, there is insecurity, of course, from my perspective. And so as a youth, we'll be trying to, or would like to make a genuine living. So there wouldn't be such means, all right, of making a living. So what you have to do, you have to resort to, you know, to all these warring parties, all right, in order to side with either of them. And that's where the problem comes in, because it's not only the regime, and it is not about the opposing forces on the ground. So as a youth, you are caught in a predicament. You are caught in a predicament, you know, what to do. And so, you know, Sudan, of course, has been at war for a very long time. And so you know, are desensitizing. And the youth also do not have proper access to education. You may have like a primary school, you know, education, or you can do cool education if you're lucky, you know, and there as a youth, it is not enough to make you competitive in this business world, all right? Because our system, of course, is being capitalist at the end of the day, and you know, it needs you to have proper education first, you know, before you do anything related to finance your IQ. And so this is the issue. And just because education is not being provided free of charge, you know, by the state, same thing with medicines, all right? Or, I mean, healthcare system. So all of this affect our youth. And our youth, at the end of the day, resort to you know, to desperate measures, such as, you know, being used as a tool for achieve, you know, a given aim. So that's just basically a perspective that I can give concerning the youth, because I observed it firsthand. Being up north and I came back south right now. So, you know, years ago, it was worse because I decided to go there and work, right? So there was a lot of discrimination based on who I am, because they consider the Southerners to be people that have succeeded. So why do they have to come back? But now these days, our brothers up north there, whether you're under a fool, whether you are in Kordofan, right? So you are being discriminated. They are running back now to the south, seeking refuge. Majority of our people here are being shorted, right? And so, as an African youth, of course, I know who I am and I know what challenges that my people are facing, because I can give a perspective that the war taking place up there is not happening in a vacuum. It happened as a result of geopolitical powers, right? That are funding the war in order for the youth, all right, to be used as cannon powder, like the way it is. So this is global, and this is white supremacy and Arab supremacy, and we cannot downplay either of the two.
Yes. Yeah, indeed. We hear you loud and clear, my brother, that the concept, the so-called Arab supremacy, the myth of Arab supremacy and the myth of white supremacy are as pernicious and are as relevant to the Sudanese crisis. And neither supersedes the other. Both are as important and must be given equal status in our analysis. So that message is loud and clear, and I agree with you on that. And that's why I made the intervention to highlight the hypocrisy of Queen Victoria and the British government, who were claiming to be opposing Arabized enslavement in the Sudan, whilst at the same time leading the scramble for Africa in
yes.
in the late 1800s. I'm going to ask again for your assistance in sharing a perspective with us, which is to what we talk about the young people, the youth, and we've established that the largest aspect of the population, the largest demographic in the Sudan are young people, are youth, 60% of the population, median age of 18. That's quite something. Yeah. What is the status of resistance movements in the Sudan of young people? To what extent are our young people visible as a resistant force, a resistance force or a resistance movement in the Sudan? I'm
Wow,
looking at you as a young person, and you're vibrant and you are revolutionary. To what extent is that spirit being reflected in the Sudan? Can you share a perspective on that for us, please?
personally speaking, I'm an RBG, and so I don't know, like I don't know brothers
RBG
that
meaning red,
identify.
black, meaning red, black, and green. Yes, that's for the
Yes,
listeners, the
red, black, and
viewers.
green. I'm an RBG soldier.
And I
So
can
I
see
don't know.
your red, black, and green in the background, my brother. Let me just say that. And
Oh yes,
I want to share mine as well.
I see. I see.
I
Race
know you.
first.
All right, race first. Go ahead, my brother. Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh yes, I will speak from the perspective as is an African in South Sudan, in my geopolitical battle zone, South Sudan, as an African in a world African revolution. So I see our youth are basically being manipulated by the political leaders, by the sectarianism that is taking place in the country. You will not see youth engaging in a healthy political debate, on a broader social issues, because of the issue related to divide, conquer, and rule strategy that was used by the European powers to divide us and take advantage of our weakness. So it is the same thing that is still taking place. You will hear, a given community fighting against a given community, or they themselves be trying, all right, to accuse one another, saying that they are the one that dominated, a political sphere, and they are not actually delivering services such as education, healthcare, all other infrastructural development in the country. So you will be seeing the youth, from a point where you think that, the current youth are not actually, are not actually bell, right? Because we talk of building a person, like what Pedro Douglas said, that it is easier to build a child than to repair a broken man. So I may say that our youth are broken by post-traumatic stress disorder, or trauma related to wars that have been fought in Sudan, and because of the political leaders that seek to divide us and to achieve their tribal imperialism agenda. So that's what I can say from the perspective as youth. And this is why I accept the call for a world African revolution to organize in my geopolitical reality, South Sudan, with the young people, because I know that if I invest in preschool children, if I invest in grade school children, they will grow knowing who they are, all right, as African in that geopolitical battle zone across the world, right? And then we are going to wage the real African revolution, because now I'm just like somebody in train preparing the trenches for tomorrow's battle, because I know my youth, of course, they are engaged in activities that do not reflect African consciousness. We may be identifying ourselves with the countries, and these countries, we are weak. Europeans don't call themselves tribes. So why do we call ourselves as, for example, in South Sudan, we say 64
Absolutely.
tribes. And we
Absolutely.
are proud of that 64 tribes.
Yes.
Why do we call ourselves like that? We are
Yeah.
dehumanizing ourselves. We
Yeah.
are just making ourselves as savages that is still organize themselves along the line of tribe. Europeans have a lot of languages, but they stick together as white.
I totally agree with you, my brother. I hate that word tribes, and
I hate it
especially
too.
as we know, we understand that these so-called tribes are actually indigenous African nations. They are nations, but to call them nations is to is to ascribe to them something that is considered to be the province of, or the exclusive province of Europeans. Yeah,
Yes,
because
sir.
it means that they are engaged in sophisticated organization of society, sophisticated political thinking and economic strategizing and so on. So I totally agree with you. I want to commend you, my brother, before I come back to brother Ball. I want to commend you as a young person for being who you are, for being a revolutionary, for being on Liberation Road as you are. You're younger than my youngest son. My youngest son is 34 years of age, and you're younger than my youngest son. And you have so much enthusiasm and so much energy. And I enjoy the power of your analysis. It demonstrates how much you think about the liberation of our people. And I love the fact of your globalist Pan-African thinking, that you're not just concerned with what is happening in the Sudan or even just on the African continent, but you are concerned with what is happening throughout the African world. I will come back to you. Let me come to Brother Ball again. And before I do so, just for those who have tuned in late this evening, just to assure you that you're tuned into the Sister Shanice show and not the Brother Leader Bandaka show. And I am really hosting on behalf of Sister Shanice, who is having some technical problems and has charged me with moving forward with hosting the program on her behalf, which I'm more than happy to do, beloved brothers and sisters, although I would much prefer if Sister Shanice was able to direct things as she does so well and so expertly. So let me hail our sister again. She is a beautiful and blessed African queen. We have been endowed with her great mind and her commitment to our people. And so it's an honor to be on our show, assuming any role or responsibility. Let me come to Brother Ball. Brother Ball, I know you have a lot that you want to say. There are a couple of questions that I wanted to ask you, but I think it would be better at this juncture to just ask you to come in and pick up on wherever you wish to pick up on moving forward. And as I do, I will, as and where necessary, I will interrupt and ask questions that I consider to be relevant. So if you want to come in, my dear brother, and pick up from wherever you wish, Tendai Moari.
You know, thank you, my brother. Thank you, and also the viewers around the world. And I thank Sister Shani for giving us always the opportunity. She's a fighter. She is someone that believes in her people. It doesn't matter where they live in the world. She always loved them. And I think that we cannot take that away from her.
Absolutely.
Struggle and love for his people, for the continent. I mean, you can name it. And that's why I'm here. You know, let me give you a little bit my perspective on a Pan-Africanism that Marco Garvey and E.W. Du Bois and many others struggle, and also people in Africa, people like Kwame Nkrumah, and I can name it all, that they struggle to bring the African together, the diaspora at home, and we share the same destiny, and you name it all. And they did their best. And in my perspective, as someone that born in Africa, live in the crisis, taken away from the crisis, I wouldn't come to the Western world if I was not taken to slavery. Because I was born in an African village where I was raised to take care of my cattle and cow and chickens and raised to be 18 years old so I can have my wife. That is my dream. I didn't know nothing about Africa. I don't know that Africa would exist. I don't know Sudan would have been a country that I was a part of. I only knew that I was raised in a village in my own community called Denka, where I only speak my own mother tongue. When these strangers come to my village with horsebacks, with cattle, with the camel, with donkey, I was dislocated to find myself in different environment. Give me forced me against my will to speak Arabic. And I never went to school in Arabic. But my journey, it made me to be forced against my will. And the Pan-Africanism, I believe, in my opinion, have been hijacked or manipulated by those who don't love us. And that way the Pan-Africa did not find its way out to have African people at home and also abroad. And I can give you a good example that people like Robert Mugabe, people like Marco Garvey, many others, they actually had a good intention. It was not bad intention at all. For the law for that people to be liberated, to be free from oppression. But when they went to the continent and present this kind of view, people like Kwame Nkrumah, and I can go on, and James Kenyatta in Kenya and many others, Julius Nyerere in Tanzania, they have been manipulated by the Northern African elites. People like Nasser of Egypt, people like Gaddafi in Libya. And that was the Pan-African lost the vision. Because their intention was not for the African unity. It was to divide the African. It was to take over the Africa. And the African leaders lost the way on the Pan-Africanism.
Yeah. Well, let me. Sorry to interrupt you, my brother. I just want to. I want you to just repeat what you've just said, because there is so much powerful truth in what you've just said. And we had an elder brother on last week, our brother Tanut Amun last week, who spoke to this particular issue, and I thought it was one of the most important statements that was made in regards to the Sudanese situation and how it impacted on Pan-African analysis. And what you said just now about Nasser and Gaddafi, that they were not Pan-Africanists, that they had a different agenda. They were Arab expansionists. And also that the influence that they had on well-meaning Pan-Africanist leaders is so important. So I'm going to ask you just to repeat, just, succinctly, repeat that you've just made, my brother.
Yes. Like what I mentioned is that the Pan-Africanism have been manipulated by those who don't love us, by those who don't love the African people, by those who contribute for the African destruction in the first place, and turn around to be pro-Africa unity. And I go back, the diaspora community, led by people like Marco Garvey and E.W.B. Du Bois in the United States and many others, and then come along the generation of Malcolm X, you name it, Martin Luther King, I mean, you name it, Martin Luther King was pro-America, but there were a generation that pro the unity of Africa, that came from Africa. People like Kwame Nkrumah went to school in the United States, went back home to liberate the Africa. People like James Kenyatta of Kenya, people like Julius Nyerere of Tanzania, I can name them all and I can go on and on. These people, that generation had a good intention that they want to bring the Africa together, but unfortunately, their vision has been manipulated and hijacked by Northern African elites. So by not focusing how to bring the African together. And when the Arab agenda divide the African, Pan-African have been divided on visions because they were not having a best interest of the unity of the African people. And I can give you so many good examples. Like in my own life, you see, my brother, sometimes when you know the language of individual, when you learn the culture, you learn the language, whatever your enemy, you'll be able to understand your enemy action and their move. But when you are clueless, you don't know your enemy language, and you don't know your enemy culture, you always lack information about your enemy. What happened, African brothers in the continent, the lacking information of the enemy that shared the land with them in North Africa. Because a lot of them don't speak Arabic. Today, if you go to Africa, today, while I'm talking to you right now, only the country that speak Arabic influentially is the Sudanese people, African Sudanese. The majority of Africa don't speak Arabic. Even Somalia, who are 100% Muslim, they don't speak Arabic. When you don't speak that language of somebody you call a friend, you may not know that friend very well because you don't know his culture in language. You don't know that person. The reason why we know European because we speak English. That's why we know European culture. We know European how we know the language and we know okay what they have done wrong. But when you have an enemy, you don't know that language, you don't know that culture, you will not have information about that enemy. And then what happened to Kwame Kuma, that what happened to Julius Nyerere, and many others like James Kennard, because they did not have a language of the enemy that sat down in the same table with them discussing the Pan-African unity.
That said,
and that's why the African Union. Go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt you, my brother. That said, in fairness to Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, before he died, he did correct his perspective on the Arabs. He did say that Africa below the Sahara is on its own, and Africa below the Sahara must unite. And he did say that the Osachifo Kwame Nkrumah had come to that realization himself, so that they went through the process of trying to embrace the Arab world as part of the Pan-African project. Yeah, go ahead. You want
to let me add something there for what you mentioned.
Go ahead, go ahead.
When Ghana got independent, and the Kwame Nkrumah gave a speech and said the independence of Ghana will be meaningless if the Africa country are not independent.
Yeah, unless it is yes, unless it is linked to the liberation of the entire African continent. Yeah,
absolutely. So that speech have hand down Kwame Nkrumah by the Nasser in Egypt, because we knew at that time African there were momentum of the liberation and Pan-African was so high in diaspora and also at home. So what did Nasser decide to do at the time? He actually convened Kwame Nkrumah by sending intelligent Egyptian women intelligent agents to be a bride for Kwame Nkrumah as a wife. And that Egyptian lady did not know how to speak English. Neither Kwame Nkrumah know how to speak English, to speak Arabic.
Yeah, Arabic.
And he became a wife, and then the Hannah become a wife of Kwame Nkrumah. And according to people like us who speak Arabic and the culture of that individual society, we knew that that woman have killed the vision of unity of Africa as soon as it became a wife of Kwame Nkrumah at the time. And that the agenda of Egypt and Nasser have done it and killed the vision by giving the very strong Pan-African man in the continent a wife who have no contact culture with Kwame Nkrumah, neither speak the same language, neither have the same culture. And that's why Kwame Nkrumah, it was the most hated at the time by the Ghanaian, because he did not have a Ghanaian woman when he died or when he got kicked out from the Ghana after coming out from his trip. And then it was a revolution, and then it was overthrown because Ghanaian people, they were not happy because Kwame did not have a wife, even African woman at the time.
Okay.
And that woman was seen as intelligent.
Okay.
And we know as the gathering information in that kind of culture, in that kind of language, how that had been manipulated and well organized by the Egyptian and the North African.
Yes,
to kill the Pan-Africanism.
My dear brother, there's so much truth in what you've just said. Painful truth. And I say painful because the analysis that you've just given us on Kwame Nkrumah and the Arab wife that he took sent by NASA. Yes, and in fact, some sources say that she was NASA's cousin. She was related to NASA. We must also factor into that analysis that after the Osajifo was overthrown, in fact, even before he was overthrown, he was having all kinds of battles with the Arabs in Ghana, the Lebanese and the Syrians who were in Ghana, who went up against Kwame Nkrumah, because Kwame Nkrumah was indigenizing the economy of Ghana. He was putting the economy of Ghana in the hands of the indigenous Africans of Ghana. And that didn't rest well with the Arabs, who had dominated aspects of the economy at the time. So there was that battle that the Osajifo was fighting with the Arabs in Ghana. We need to factor that into the analysis. And we also need, and a lot of people don't know this, but after the Osajifo was overthrown, and the wife that Fatia, I think her name was, left Ghana, went to Egypt, and the Osajifo went to Guinea, and she wanted to join him in Guinea, and he refused to allow her to come to Guinea. He never saw her again. He never connected with her again. And I think that is interesting. We need to know this. We need to know this, because that may well have been evidence of another level of awakening that may have occurred. We can dovetail that with.
Raise first, Baba. Can you please repeat that one? What are you saying concerning a beast to Guinea?
Yeah, what I said was that after the Osajifo was overthrown, Osajifo Kwame Nkrumah was overthrown in Ghana.
What?
And his wife left Ghana and she repatriated to Egypt. He went to live in Guinea. And she wanted to join him in Guinea, and he refused to allow her to join him in Guinea. So he never saw her again after that overthrow. And I'm tying that in with the battles that he had with the Arab elements in Ghana when he was trying to indigenize the economy of Ghana. And I'm also tying that in with what Mwalimu Julius Nyerere said about the awakening that had occurred with Kwame Nkrumah, realizing that Africa below the Sahara, otherwise called Black Africa, is not a term I particularly like either, but he's talking about indigenous Africans were on their own. Yeah, that we were yeah, that the Arab world was not an organic entity or an organic part of the African world, that it was a separate entity and it was an antagonistic entity, that the Osajifo came to that awakening. Certainly, Mwalimu Julius Nyerere came to that awakening and made such statements to the public. So I'm just saying that we need to be aware of how their thinking evolved. Yeah.
Well,
come in, brother Ball.
Yeah. Oh, so that exactly a biggest downfall of the Pan-Africanism in the continent.
Yeah.
And all that education, the historian, the scholars, and those who fettered African brothers and sisters in diaspora, who've been calling for unity of the African people, in the ground where we live in the continent, we have a lion inside the house that will not allow us to come together in that house. And that's the biggest challenge. And our brothers, some African leaders, they actually very much shout out about Europeans, and which is actually is okay with you to do that because that's the culture that you know. What about the culture that you don't know that inside the continent? Culture of individual you don't know. There were the Sudanese coming in to fill that gap. That way we're coming to fill the gap to the African brothers and say you are missing out something here. To have a full liberation, you got to understand the culture of these individuals you associate with. These individuals come in and move in and say that we want to sell the Islamics and we have to change your name, we have to give you the culture, we have to give you the language. These people who live in the continent, they are not your friends and they are not your brothers. That way the Sudanese supposed to come and fill that gap. And the other African countries who speak the English, or not the English culture, they can fill the gap of that English culture. The Africans who speak the French, they can also fill the gap of this French speakers culture. The same Africans speak Portuguese, it can fill the gap, and then we come to the table and realize who really the enemy of the continent. But we failed to do that because we have come together to understand exactly what is going on in the continent. And that brings me back to Sudan. What's going on for Sudan today? What's going on to Sudan today is not only for the Sudanese. This is a serious, could face Africa crisis. This is not Sudan problem. This is an African problem. What we've been talking about here, they already, as soon as South Sudan got independent in 2011, they already moved into South Sudan right now while I'm talking to you. And they want to do the same. They already done in the Sudan. They're moving in Kenya, they're moving in Uganda, they're moving in Tanzania, they're moving in Congo, they're moving everywhere. Don't leave alone the West Africa. You faced by Boko Haram. These Boko Haram in Nigeria, they were well trained in Egypt. We have a university called the University of Azari. That bring four African brothers who are indoctrinated to Islam, bring them to indoctrinate them in Egypt, teach them Arab culture, Islamic culture, send them back to destabilize Africa continent.
So what you're saying to us is that the Arab expansionism is taking place on the African continent rapidly. It's impacting various African nations like Tanzania, Nigeria, the Congo. Is that what you're saying to us, my brother?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Just give you example. Today, Tanzania, after John Malimo died, who took it over? It was an Islamic lady, well indoctrinated in Islamic culture and Muslim Brotherhood member, took over Tanzania. When election today was called in Tanzania, he refused not to call election in jail and kill and torture and chase away the entire Tanzania politician. Because he could not give up the power, because he knew that could benefit the Arab world and Islamic world, because she's not working for the Tanzania, she's working to feed the agenda of the expansion of the Arabism in Africa and Tanzania. That's a good example I can give you. And that not alone, even in Sudan, these two generals are doing the same thing for the expansion of the Arabism and Islamism. The question I want to ask you today, where is the African Union with all this? The African Union is quiet because actually whoever appointed an African Union, you got to have a Muslim, you got to carry the Muslim name, otherwise you are not going to be the African Union head commission. Most of the people led African Union for more than 20 years since African Union was formed. You got to be Africa carrying on the Islamic name. When you have Islamic name, that means you are not working for the Africa, you're working for those who give you the name. That's why African Union is dying, that's why African Union becomes so voiceless within the motherland. And also when you have your people have been dislocated, your African people just look like me and talk like me. If you live today in Caribbean and I don't know how to talk to you or mean of communication, I will not reach out to you because I don't know how to communicate with you. The reason why I'm in the show with Sister Shani because I speak English. And the same thing I speak to because I learned English. I learned it recently. But if you go to the Sudan, most of the Sudanese have been dislocated. They don't speak English, neither they speak French, neither they speak Spanish, only they speak Arabic. Because when you dislocate the people, they cannot communicate with their own race. You act automatically, you already kill them. If you take the fish from the water and put it outside, that fish is not going to live. What happened to Sudanese? First, but what they did, what the Arab agenda did first, they dislocate them not to have a culture connect with the African brothers, not to have a language connect with the African brothers. They cannot cry to Africa Union. A lot of them speak English. Now you easy for them to commit to wipe them out because they don't speak the language. Who they're crying to? They're crying the language they call Arab language. They're crying to the same Arab that sent you to kill them. So there's no way they can communicate with you. That's why the Sudanese are dying. That's why the African Union is not reaching out to them because there's no communication
Yeah.
to talk to the citizen of Sudanese. But
Let,
the
let, let,
minority Sudanese who come to the Western world is speaking like you and I,
let
like
me,
me and other. Today, we're reaching out on behalf of the Sudanese people.
Tendai Muharid, my brother, let me jump in here. I hate to interrupt you in your flow, and especially as you are so passionately raising some crucial issues. And I think this the central core of the last point that you've made is to understand the power of language and to understand the extent to which Arab culture is overwhelming and suppressing African culture, and in fact, eliminating African culture on the African continent, including our languages. And you are emphasizing how important language is. You talked about the president of Tanzania was taken over from Magufuli, Samia Suluhu Hassan, and the significance of that, which is extremely important. I wish we had more time. We have about 17 minutes left on the show. The direction I'd like to give us for the rest of the show, and I want to come to Brother Dor. The direction I'd like to give us for the most part of the remaining time that we have is how we move forward. How do we go forward from here? The crisis in the Sudan is real. Our people are suffering. Our people are dying. These two Arabized forces, led by General Burhan and General Dagalo or Hameti, whichever name we want to use for him, are not in the service of African people. They're certainly not in the service of African liberation. They are promoting an alien Arabized, Arab expansionist agenda, and they are unleashing suffering upon our people in that pursuit. How do we arrest this situation? How do we go forward from here? What is the solution to this problem? My young brother, may I put that responsibility on your shoulder for the next few minutes to take us forward, my brother? How do we move forward from here?
Race first, family.
Race first.
You know, our perspective for me as a young African man is to take an African-centric approach and to regard everything, whether it is white or an Arab, as one. It's just enemy, right? All because Dr. John Henry Clark said that we are on our own, right? And I do believe that in world African revolution, we are on our own. Africa is a land of great abundance. So Chinese came here, all right, to be pretending to be friend, of course, all right, so that they can get some resources to go develop their own, trying to provide, a sort of a relationship. But what we have now concerning all this is like we are just in a position of a slave master relationship. Same thing with the West. And what I can say to you, my people, you family, is that Arabs, are surrogate white. Arabs are surrogate white. They are considered by the power as white. And so that's why now they are being used, all right, in order to continue the enslavement of African in economic bondage. Because we have UN purporting to promote a security and peace of the world, but it is just a modern day slave ship with World Bank, with IMF, and Arab leaders as tools, trying to distract our immediate attention on the task in hand, right? Because I remember Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, as you said before, got distracted. We were having some leaders that were actually taking a gradual approach, such as Ahmed Ben Bello, Abdel Nasser. But what happened at the end of the day? I recently discovered that it was a hypocrisy. There was Arab expansionism when I was reading a certain Palestinian revolutionary. So Abdel Nasser was so engaged in Palestinian resistance against Zionists, in the Middle East. And so I came to realize that, Abdel Nasser was a pan-Arabist. It was not a pan-Africanist. All right, they may trying to put on the garb of a pan-Africanism, trying to pretend that they are just our brothers in the struggle or comrade brothers in the struggle. But in the end, they were all their sympathies, all their effort tangible on the ground were just channeled to Arab liberation.
Absolutely,
and so,
absolutely.
As African, as Dr. John Henry Clark saw, we are on our own. And I believe that we are all that we got. And we push for race first agenda. That's just my 2 cents word, family. I be PPOD.
And before you sign out, my brother, we haven't talked about the influence of the Americans on the situation in the Sudan. But we've talked about Saudi Arabia, we've talked about the UAE, we've talked about Egypt. They're all allies of the American state. They're all satellites of the United States of America. Would you speak to that before you close out, my dear brother? And I will ask, I will implore Brother Ball to say something on this when I come back to him. But what's the role of America in all of this?
Well, America is a bully, from the perspective of an African on the mother continent. There was a new spies route, right? News spy route that up the apps and apps of American or AFRICOM activities and basis of operation all over the place, right? All the way from Dakar, the coast of Senegal, right? Mali, passing through the Congo, South Sudan, straight to Djibouti, which is actually the actual base. So you see, America is trying to pan all of this confusion. All our local militias here have been given M16. Can you imagine M16? What do they get such weapon? It is manufactured by Americans. So they are the one harming our rebel on the ground to fuel, our disunity and to fuel our conquest by the global powers to disunite us and make us look like the way we are. So you see, America is just promoting, a sort of proxy wars all over the place. Even the war happening, in the Sudan, their hands are there because they wouldn't be able to get the Sudan they wouldn't be able to get the hands of Sudan soon. Because if you remember, Clinton administration back in the 90s, it was trying to manipulate, the Sudan as it was being manipulated by the previous regime. And of course, it backfired. And it continued to now. And we see that, we got the Middle Eastern countries. Of course, I hate to say Middle East because that's North Africa. And, we do have Kremlin. We do have, Washington, or the Anglo-Saxon cousin, France, Great Britain, all the NATO allies. So they are there because Sudan is the actual, one of the African apps and mineral-rich states. And this is why now, as African, we should push for agenda of African liberation. Those enmity, hallowed, independence given to us back in the day, they should be at least now trying to wipe this up because the great men have left the work behind, just Kwame Nkrumah. If you read his work, all his ideas are still as relevant as today. Same thing with the great Marcus Garvey, the most honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. So all we must push is to push for global African liberation or world African revolution.
Okay.
War.
Thank you very much, my brother. I'll come back to you if I can for a short closing remark, but let me just come to Brother Ball. Brother Ball, could you speak to this issue of America's influence in the Sudanese crisis, my dear brother?
Well, thank you. America have no influence in Sudanese. What happened was the Arab League, they tried to use America as a scapegoat to come in to see as they team up with the superpower, the most strong nation in the world. They want to put America in the agendas to intimidate African countries and make sure when America behind them, they can intimidate and kill whoever they wish to kill, and they can support. They can actually push for the agenda to eliminate Africans, indigenous in Sudan, as usual. They also America actually is not happy with the Sudan because Osama bin Laden that tear down World Trade Center in 2021. It lived in Sudan, supported by the Sudanese government and hosted by the Sudanese government.
I'm not sure if that was Osama bin Laden, that tear down them twin towers,
Yes,
that's another subject for another time.
Osama bin Laden was an American agent,
let me, let
CIA.
me, let me
Was
finish
an
my
American agent.
let me finish my thought. Look,
yes. Sorry to interrupt you, my brother, but I just had to jump in there because that is certainly the
there's
official.
nothing. Look,
Sorry.
I'm a guy that run away in the time of Osama bin Laden. I live in Khartoum. I know Osama bin Laden lived there. I was there as a young boy. I know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, I know the location where he was living in and why the most African indigenous in Sudan was kicked out when Osama bin Laden hosted by the Bashir by saying that we need to build Islamic and Arab state and we don't want a Christian, neither the refugees South Sudanese to live here. So we got kicked out. I end up running away to Egypt and end up in the United States. Let me put my point here.
Yeah.
America, as a nation that do not support the Islamic terrorism, Al Qaeda, and Sudan is actually supporting terrorists. America was not interested to support what's going on in Sudan because Americans see these are two Islamic are killing one another. Along the killing one another, he wiped out his hand on it and let deal with our own problem. So
Okay, let me just say
America,
very quickly.
yeah.
Let me just say very quickly. I do hear you, my dear brother. My mind runs to a man by the name of Richard Gage. He is a physicist and something else, but he's part of a movement called oh Lord, the name slips me at the moment. Architects and Engineers for 911 Truth, I think is the name of the organization. And this is this is an organization of engineers, physicists, and other experts who know demolition, controlled demolition when they see it. And if Richard Gage was on the show, he would say, I know what a controlled demolition looks like. And he would argue that what happened on at 911, what happened was a controlled demolition and not an attack on the Twin Towers that brought those towers down, that brought down hundreds of thousands of tons of masonry and metal, turned metal into molten metal. But that's another subject for another time. I think we have to be very, very careful about that.
So America is not behind what's going on in Sudan. America want to kind of stay back and watch what's going on in Sudan. Because that also America see that should be dealt with by the African themselves. But if there's not the problem of Sudan, the two general also run to Arab League. They don't run to Africa Union because they know that they don't have an interest in Africa Union. They are not fighting for African interests. They're fighting for the Arab interests. So they have to go back to the Arab leagues and ask them for solution. They never ask African for solution. Even they never ask South Sudanese for solution. Even though we live in Sudan, we just broke away a couple of years ago. They don't want our solution because we're Africans and we're black that don't like. So they want Arab to solve that problem. Arab also, on the other hand, they have to come to the United States and say, please help us with this case. And also another way to look at it that America can support the Arab to solve the Sudan problem. In the meantime, America also is very skeptical on how can I support the Islamists who are 100% supporting Palestinian cause and struggle Well, actually, I in America supporting Jewish state. So you see the situation here. So that means even Sudanese, the 2-year-old, they support Palestinian cause, and because they want to do that to fleece the Arab League and Egypt. So America have nothing to do with what's going on in Sudan, and Arab are trying to convene America to come to the table and help them so they can see they're working with a big boy and the table. So that's what it is.
Tanai Mwari, my understanding is that the Americans, being the superpower that they are, have everything to do with everything that's going on in the world. There is nothing major, significant happening in the world that the Americans have nothing to do with. And I think the Sudan is no exception. America has a close relationship with Saudi Arabia. If you look at the nature of the relationship that America has with Saudi Arabia, the nature of the relationship America has with Egypt, the nature of the relationship that America have with the UAE, there is no way that they and the significance and the role that America played in the split in Sudan and South Sudan is in itself an indication of America's interest in the Sudan. So we have to be very, very clear about the historical role that America has played on the African continent, in the Arab world, and the role that America plays in the world today. Yeah. I'm on to last words now. So if you could give me your last words, my dear brother, I am going to come to Brother Dor to also give me last words. Can you make it a minute or two, please? Because we're near the top of the hour. Go ahead, my dear brother.
Are you talking to me or are you talking to that young man?
I'm speaking to you, Brother Ball.
I just want to say thank you for hosting me. And we should also have opinion and respect our own opinion, your opinion, whatever is opinion that is contribute here. And that's what makes us Africans.
That's right.
Because our opinion is very, very important to move forward. And also our all background, our struggle, our knowledge for the Africa we want to live in. We got to put them to the table. You may know what I don't know. I may know what you don't know. And whether the young man knows something he may not have been aware of. So when we put them to the table, that way we can get the solution. But absolutely, let us, instead for us to blame another man for our problem, let's take our responsibility for our problem. And what happened with Africa all these 100 years, 60 years, we've been blaming another man for our problem. We're the one also sometimes responsible for destruction of African people as well. We need to put that to the table and say, what can we do of our mothers, our sisters who have been terrorized by our own sometimes? You have rapidly, you have dictatorship in Africa. You have military rising, killing his own citizens. You have African tribal complex. I can use South Sudan as an example, that South Sudan now are in the bandage of tribalism. They want to kill each other because you don't belong to my tribe. I have to kill you. If you don't, this has to stop. We want to be African, okay?
Absolutely.
And what
up.
in Africa is the tribalism need to stop and let's unite us. One Africa, one united, and also have agreement and disagree and move forward with our continent. And thank you so much.
Tatenda, thank you, my dear brother. It is certainly the case that we are our own liberators and we must take responsibility for our liberation, but we are not responsible for our oppression. We need to be clear about that, and we need to have a clear analysis of who our oppressors are. And I'm glad you also mentioned South Sudan, because there is a crisis in South Sudan that we also need to address. And maybe I'm sure Sister Shanice will have us back again to deal with South Sudan, because it's extremely important that we deal with South Sudan. Let me give you a last word, dear brother Dor. Please make it brief, a minute or two at the most. We're at the top of the hour.
We are at the top of the hour. We are, yes, indeed. And Brother Leader Bandak, I want to thank you so much for hosting the show today. You've taken it to a depth that it may not have reached had I been able to access my internet properly and deliver and be the host for today. Most definitely, I will be continuing to spotlight this troubling issue in Sudan. I think that the last couple of shows have been a major breakthrough in terms of us being able to pinpoint precisely the plans and the strategy that the Arabs have. We've exposed it. And I want to thank the speakers who have assisted us to arrive at the truth. It's Arab expansionism. We've got Arab players behind the two generals, financing the militia, and they're laughing at us. We must look like a real laughing stock. And the horrors, the genocide, the evil that's been meted out on our people in those regions is unbearable to see. And I've seen some of it, and it is despicable. It's inhumane. And so we must all do what we can, even if it's just talking about it. If you know officials, bring it to their attention, get your MPs to mention it in Parliament, you know, put pressure through your trade unions to get them to raise it as an issue. You pay your trade union fees, get this as an issue on the agenda. And let's do more to talk with our brothers and sisters, you know, across the pond, on the continent, in Sudan, you know, and they will also be able to assist and to guide us to where our help and our support could be most impactful. So thank you again, Brother Leader Bandaka, Brother Dor, and Brother Boy. More love, more strength, more power to each of you. And we will be returning to this very soon. Sister Shanice, out of here for now. Thank you, audience. We love you. Thank you for your patience. Sorry we didn't get to your messages today.
Tatenda.
Black power.
Thank you.
Black power. Tenda
Black power indeed. Black